Welcome back to the channel. How are you? I'm doing good. Sun's shining, great biking weather. This video is all about how much biking has cost me in under a year. So I thought that I'd come and speak to you directly rather than having Claire here, because at least you can put your comments and just tell her how justified I was in spending it. The reason why I added everything up and decided to do this video is because I've just finished doing some upgrades to the Versys, and that's because the price of new bikes is quite expensive, and with the amount of money that we've spent, I think we've spent enough for now. People were asking how much we'd spent, so this is what it's all about. I'm going to give you some advice. I've made some mistakes. Hopefully, if you're new to this, it's going to stop you from spending as much as I did. If you're already a biker, then you just might be curious as to what it's actually cost me. We have finished the mods. We put on a Uchi BX sat-nav, CarPlay, dash cam, blind spot detector unit. Now that didn't cost me anything, as I mentioned in the last video, because they sent me the unit, but I've been using it a lot more, and I can give you like a bit of a better update on it now. It's going to stay on the bike. The blind spot detection has been very useful, because now what I've done is I've put it on this little bar. I got a bar that you go online and you can find these GPS bars, and that goes just behind this windscreen, which I'll get to in a little bit. But now what I've got is that I can see the blind spot detection right in my line of sight. So if anybody comes at the back of me, then it tells me that there's somebody there. And if they get close enough, it'll show me actually what they look like, and I don't have to move around. So I am aware that I've still got to use my mirrors. I worried a little bit at first, thinking that maybe it might distract me and I'd just look at that instead of the mirrors, but it's not actually. It's a really, really useful aid. So I'm really pleased about that. I don't use music on there, because if I want to listen to music, I'll do it away from the bike. It takes away from the experience for me. But I've used a sat-nav as well through CarPlay, and that works really good. So I'm pleased at that. Now, it's not without its little quirks. This was actually almost like a sample. It's not the full finished version that you'd get if you bought it. So there's a couple of things that aren't working quite as well, but that's being fixed in a firmware upgrade. And the things that aren't working is if you put the rear camera on while you're riding, it doesn't tell you how fast you're going, so there's no speedometer, doesn't register that. The compass on the home screen's not working, that's a placeholder, that's going to get replaced. But apart from that, that's fine. Mechanically, the only thing that caused me a problem, well, I've got a quick release system, because sometimes I leave the bike where things can come off a bike in seconds. Bikes can disappear in seconds, so I just prefer to take it off. So this quick release system in dry weather like this, I've found that it gets quite stiff and it gets difficult to take off, so I've put a bit of WD-40 on there. Whether that's a correct thing to use at this point, because it might wear off, I don't know, but it moves in and out now and it locks in. So I've mentioned about the bar, they're really good for putting GPS on there. So if you're looking at going on any distances and you haven't used one, I can highly recommend them. They're quite expensive for what they are. Basically, it's just a bit of a measured bar. I think it cost me about 50 quid. And in materials and everything, I just can't quite get my head around why it would cost so much. But it was the option that were available, so that's what I got. Windscreens, I'm not that interested in windscreens. I don't think I get on with the windscreens very well, but I wanted it to finish the bike off. I just find that I get buffeting. This is a smaller screen. The screen itself is brilliant. I got it from STP. Took a little while to come. This is a power bronze, and you can choose whatever colour you want. They've got loads of different colours, and I think it looks pretty smart actually. So I love the look of it, and the quality is very good. Custom made, so you have to wait a little bit for it to come, but when it does come, it's great. The only thing is I think it might be the Versys actually. I just think it's not very good for buffeting on my head. It's not as bad as the big one, but it's still there. That costs about £50. So these extra upgrades cost me quite a bit of money, and not to forget the seat. It's a Wind Rider seat cover. Claire doesn't like it. She still finds it quite slippy, but in weather like this, you can really see why you'd buy a seat like this, because they do keep you cool. And if you look at the reviews, there's a lot of people from Texas, Florida, Australia that buy these because they have hotter weather. Now for a Yorkshireman, this is absolutely baking. I think we're getting up to 30 degrees, but it keeps you comfortable. So that were about 50 quid, and that were well worth having. Okay, however, we need to talk about how much everything has cost. So I'm going to take you right back to the start of my journey, and I'm going to discuss basically what every little stage has cost. I've grouped things together because otherwise we're going to have a massive list. As you know, if you bike already, it's a bit of a money pit. It's a bigger money pit than what I ever thought. If you're new to biking, it might be an eye-opener. So the number one bit of advice I give you is don't add up what you're spending on bikes, because you're probably not going to be impressed with what it is. Anyhow, let's talk about right at the beginning. The first thing I spent on biking was a CBT, and that cost me £199. So in the UK, that allowed me to ride a 125 on L plates for 2 years, and that took a day to do. So it was £199. So after I got the CBT, the next thing I had to do was to get a bike, and this is where I made my first mistake. I liked cruiser style bikes. I got a brand new Kiwi RKV 125cc. It cost me on the road £3,649. As I've got further into biking, that figure seems ridiculous to me actually. That's a lot of money to spend on a 125. And a lot of people did say you shouldn't have done that, and I agree. And the reason for that is because if you start your biking journey, you're not going to stay on a 125 for long. Now, you might think that you will, and maybe you will, but chances are that you're not going to. So that means that you've got to trade it in or try and sell it afterwards. And on a new vehicle, you lose a lot of money. Obviously, there's the VAT element, and then you've got to chop it in or try and sell it. So you lose money, which I did. I did lose money. You can see that I got some quotes for trading from Superbike Factory. And at the time, it seemed like a low quote, but obviously they're in business and they've got to make money out of it. So I think the thing is, it's in the buying. You know, you can't really blame the system. It's down to yourself. And if you buy brand new, you're going to lose money. I think it was October I started doing Mod 1 and Mod 2 for my full bike license. Mod 1, Mod 2 and the tests all together cost me £860, which I didn't think were too bad because some people it costs a little bit more. So for my total training, it was just over £1,000 to get a full bike license. In the UK, at my age, I could do a direct access, which meant that I didn't have to work my way up through each license. So after I passed Mod 1 and 2, it was time to upgrade the bike. I looked at loads of different bikes and I eventually settled on a Royal Enfield 650 Super Meteor, which I thought looked awesome. And I still think they look awesome. It was my pride and joy. It got all that chrome on it. It had got a 650 engine. It felt like it pulled like a train, totally different to a 125, and I loved it. So I chopped the keyway in, and then I had to put some money to. So the Royal Enfield ended up costing me £2,897. So the cost of the bike was £4,800, and I had to put £2,897 towards it, which meant that I got about £2,000 back for the keyway, and I'd only had it a few months. So you can see why I think not to buy new. So I rode the Royal Enfield through winter. Bit of advice for you on that one. Probably a Royal Enfield with all the chrome is not the best winter commuting bike. You could see that there were slight signs of corrosion on there, but I was loving it nonetheless. And I tried my best to protect it, kept it clean, and it weren't too bad really. But then disaster struck and I had it stolen. You can see the story about that on the channel. Not going to go over it again because, to be fair, it wasn't a very nice time and I don't really want to be going through that again. However, what happened with that is I did get paid out by the insurance. The bike was never found. It's not been found as yet. I say never found. It was found, but it was never recovered. And yeah, I got paid out. So I did get that money back. However, rather than buying a new bike with that money, I was in a fortunate position that this bike came into my ownership by Simon, really kind guy, who offered me the bike. I actually got this bike before the Royal Enfield got stolen. And it saved my biking career because had it not been for this bike, I wouldn't be biking now. what I was able to do with the money from the Royal Enfield was to up my security. It were a massive shock to me. I think if you're new to biking, it's very easy to be naive. Let me give you this advice now. In the UK, if you've got a bike, you've got your training and your safety and your clothing and everything else, but you need to give absolute 100% focus on security, because bikes get stolen. It's not that they just get stolen, it's that once they're gone, the way that I thought it works and the way that it actually works is two different things. All I can tell you to do is stop it being stolen as best you can in the first place, because if it goes, the chances of you getting it back are very slim, and the pain afterwards is real, because now my insurance for years will be more expensive. I've only just started. It was expensive anyway, but now I've got a theft claim on my profile, which costs. So not only was it expensive in the first place, but maybe I'm seen as high risk or higher risk because somebody else has stolen the bike. So there we go. That's that. Make sure it's clamped down. So that money went into security. I'm not going to go into what I did with the security because then it'll be less secure. So insurance wise, between the two bikes, the Keyway and this, cost me about £2,600. I'm in my first year, so that's with going between the bikes. £2,600 altogether. That is a lot of money. And you're probably thinking, why is it so much money? And a lot of people say, well, I only pay this, I only pay this, I only pay this. The problem is that I do YouTube. And with YouTube, because it's a monetized channel, I have to have business insurance. I'm advised. Now, different people you ask will tell you different things, but I wanted to be on the safe side, so I got it. And that's why the insurance premiums went up so much, because of business use. Now, you might know better than me, and I'd love to hear from you. If you work in insurance and you think that we've got it wrong, then please let me know. At the end of the day, you know, I film some of the rides that I'm out on, but so does a lot of other people. But as soon as you mention money, then the premium goes up. So that's why it inflated it. But my advice is, if you're a new rider and you want to do a YouTube channel, you're probably waiting until you've got a few years under your belt, unless you want to stump up the cost for running the channel. Now, you could do it and get a really, really successful channel. That can happen. Yes, it can. But most people on YouTube, it's a bit of a funny game. And, you know, luckily we had a bit of experience of doing this, so we kind of knew what to do. But if you don't, it can be a slow grind and it takes a long time to get any type of money in. So basically all you're doing is that you're just inflating your premiums by doing it that way. Now, with the insurance, I did get some money back. On the Keyway, I got £200 back when I chopped that in from that insurance premium. And then when the Enfield got stolen and I swapped it across to this bike, which was, what, almost 20 brake horsepower more than the Royal Enfield, I got £600 back. It's an older bike, less expensive. And I suppose it's got more data and more risk, and however they work it out. Unfortunately, insurance is something that we all need. It's not something that we can't do. So then the other thing that I've spent money on is clothing. Helmets, jackets, gloves, boots, jeans, trousers, all that type of stuff. And that's cost me quite a bit. I've grouped this together actually because these are like costs that are involved in everything else. And I've put in getting the Versys back on the road. This is all included in this price. Getting the Versys back on the road, it cost me just over £1,000 to do that. It needed a new fuel pump and there's MOTs, new tyres and all that type of stuff. But for clothing itself, included with that, wow, I spent £3,833.73. Wow. That's a lot of money, isn't it? It's stuff that, you know, I did get good quality stuff. I'll probably do a video on this and show you how this stuff's wearing because it is premium. But I must admit, it's not all looking sparkling. And some of it is, it looks old now. And I do use it nearly every day, and like functionally it's still there. But there's some things that have surprised me. So maybe I'll do that. Let me know in the comments if you want me to go through my gear and show you how it's wearing. Now, the reason why I spent so much on clothing is because when I got into it, I just got excited and thought, oh, I'll just get whatever looks good to me. I didn't read anything up on it. I bought a leather jacket in August, which I realised was not the best thing when it started to rain come October. I bought some jeans, these jeans in fact, which I still wear, but then I got better stuff to ride through winter. The helmet that I bought when I moved up to a 650 and a bigger bike, I decided through advice that I needed something a bit more substantial, so that got upgraded. I bought some other boots, which I occasionally used, but I could have brought that figure down quite a lot. So if you are new to this, you can do it cheaper. Also, what a lot of people have told me is that if you go on places like Facebook Marketplace, you can buy a lot of the gear second-hand really cheap. Don't do a helmet because you don't know where it's been, you want a new helmet, but the rest of it, you can get cheaper. If you add all that up, it comes to just under £14,000. £14,000. But then if you take off the insurance rebates, it's just over £13,000. Now, there's bikes that cost more than £13,000, I get that. But at the moment, I've got this Versys that was given to me, so I didn't even buy the bike. £13,000. If I hadn't made those mistakes that I did, I think I could have done it a lot cheaper. However, I think we'd still be around £7,000–8,000. I'm 47. You'd think that insurance would be cheaper and everything else, but there you go. So that's my case. Remember, if you're not doing the YouTube thing, that brings it down significantly. It really does. Also, if you buy smart right from the start, get the advice, then that'll bring it down significantly. But that's where we are at the minute for my case. Let me know. Are you shocked how much it's cost? Have I been silly? What would you have done different? I think if I would start again, this is the way that I'd have played it. I would have bought just a really cheap 125 and maybe just thought to myself, well, I'll just get something that's roadworthy, but nothing too flash, nothing new. Brand new model to market I found were quite expensive on insurance, whereas if you get an older, more known, better known model of bike, then it can bring the insurance down a little bit. I wouldn't have done YouTube right from the start. I'd have waited to build my no claims bonus up. I would have spent more money on security from the start, and I would have gone to a shop and got advice about the clothing and actually spoke to somebody before buying it. Yeah, I think that's what I'd do. The other thing that I'd do is I'd get a sensible bike once I passed my Mod 1 that I could grow into. This bike is that type of bike. The Royal Enfield was a beautiful bike and I loved it, but when I rode this, it opened up biking to me, and it really made me think what type of biking I'd want to do. So yeah, that's my advice. So thanks very much for watching. Claire will be back in the next one. Thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.